So are we good, Miss Dana? We're good to go? Okay. I'm going to call the Star City Council meeting to order. It's Tuesday, June 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. I'd like you all to please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Mr. Brian Howard with the Cause Church is going to do our invocation tonight. And is that on? Yep, it's on. All right.
Council members, neighbors, let's bow our hearts before the Lord. Father, we come before you, Lord, and we just thank you for this great city of Star, Lord. We lift up our police force before you right now, Father. We pray for protection in them, our firefighters, all those that are in public service, Father. We pray you would give us wisdom from on high during this meeting tonight, Lord, to correctly divide what we should do in the city of Star, Father. Let your hand of protection be over the city. Thank you so much in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call.
David Hershey. Present. Kevin Wheelock.
Here.
Trevor Chadwick.
Here.
Jennifer Salmonson.
Here.
And Kevin Nielsen is excused.
Councilman Nielsen is excused. He is in the air to Italy. So he can't help us. All right, presentations, Chief. Do you want to come up and give your presentation tonight on our monthly report? Hey, Ryan, can you shut that door back there, please?
Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff, and residents of Star. Chief Zach Kessing, Star Police Department. Grateful for the opportunity to be able to share the May police report with you. Before I do that, I just would like to take a minute, if it's all right.
Sure.
Just, this past week has been I guess lack of better words, a difficult week. And I think, it's amazing to work for a city that, and service city that starts their meetings out with a prayer. I appreciate that. And I appreciate to reflect on the last week and the last 2 weeks for the whole valley of the different things that happened, but the love and kindness that not only I, but several of my deputies have felt. And I think we need more of that in the world in today's society. And I think the city of Star does an amazing job by showing that love and that kindness. And I just want to take that moment just to thank all of you in this room and also the people in Star. Just today, just to kind of reiterate what I'm talking about, I was driving down Star Road, stopped at the stoplight there. Sweet lady pulled up to my right, rolled down her window, waved at me and got my attention. I rolled down mine and she said, "I just wanted to let you know how thankful I am for you." And those little small acts of kindness go a long way. So again, as we go through what this police report and different things we're doing, I just want to say thank you again to the city of Star. So
No, we thank you guys. It's not easy.
Yeah.
For certain, man. I said last week, the things that our officers do day in and day out with the uncertainty of what's going to happen and serve with the positive attitude and the kindness that you guys have. I mean, it starts with you guys to make the community better. So that's awesome. So I appreciate you guys. So.
as we jump into the May police report, you'll see there was quite a jump in the crimes we're investigating from April to May. I wish we had more months like April. As you can tell, April there, especially for the person crimes, was down to 5, and then we jumped up to 14 from May. March was 12. So the big jump is between April and May. As I was looking at that and reflecting upon what we can do there, I looked at what those crimes look like and what the reports are. And just to give you an idea, as my research showed what those 14 were, we had 3 lewd conduct cases, 2 assault cases, 3 domestic batteries, 4 simple batteries. I think with the warmer weather, people are getting out and about a little more and they're drinking a little more. And I think it's there's more of people arguing and getting into fights. A couple injured to childs and then the aggravated assault. So of course, looking on those and seeing what we can do, children come first in my mind and trying to think of what we can do more there. I've talked with the person crimes detective to see what's going there, and I have good faith and know that she's doing a great job here, and We also have a lot of support from Ada County detectives in looking into those and make sure they're properly investigated. So we had that the jump there. Property crimes, again, with the warmer weather, we did have a jump in burglary cases. We had a total in last month of 4 with 1 attempted, so that'd be 5. We did have quite a bit of theft by deception is what we call it, but it's those are the phone calls you get that people deceive who they are on the other line. They get your information and they take money from you. We had quite a few of those this last month. And then with the warmer weather again, I think the vandalism is up a little bit with kids' last day of school's coming up and excitement. And for some reason, sometimes that some juveniles want to go out and mark up the different playgrounds. So we're keeping an eye on that as well. We do, again, talk to my property crimes detective. We do have different cameras out and about, and some of them are pretty covert cameras. You can't tell where they're at, but they're out there, and we're trying to do the best we can on suppressing that from happening. And then for the society crimes, it stayed about the same. The only, I guess, jump difference in that one is we did have 5 DUIs in the month of May that we made arrests on. Again, people, I think, drinking with friends and at places and trying to drive home. So that was a rise there. We're making quite a few traffic stops, making sure we're keeping people safe on the road and doing that. As we jump down to the police activity, the citizens calls for service and the proactive policing. This is always one that my go-to of looking at where we're at. I think the more proactive we can be, the better we can be on suppressing crime happening in the city of Star. For the month of May, we had 280 citizens calls for service. Again, that's when somebody actually calls for a law enforcement officer to come and help, or a call that we get dispatched to because of that. I think some of those, it's up from 45 calls from last month. So we did get quite a few more calls for people wanting law enforcement to come or for us getting dispatched. You take a look, part of those calls have to do with crash response. We're up by 8 this month, and we're in the month of April. So again, we jumped from 17 in April to 25 in May. We're also welfare checks. I was looking into those. We had 26 welfare checks in the month of May compared to 15 the month before. And so quite a few more people calling, asking us to go check on people they're worried about. And then property crime calls went up by 3 from 16 to 19. So the proactive policing side of that, we're at 823 for the month of May. I like to see the ratio be quite high with how many proactive compared to how many, I call them reactive calls, so to say, the calls for service. For the month of May, it was about 3 to 1, where the month prior was about 4.5 to 1. I think a big portion of that is because we're a little more busy on crash responses and people calling for help. So we didn't get there as much. We didn't get the proactive policing as much as we did in the month of April. So I, again, trying to take a look at that. The total number of arrests for the month of May is 9 total arrests with, again, 5 DUIs. And then going down to code 3 response, that's where when we get somebody calling in that's in a dire emergency and we're getting there as fast as we can, safely as we can. It was 3 minutes and 17 seconds for the month of May, so well below our goal. But again, I always want that to be low because seconds matter in those cases. So again, 3 minutes and 17 seconds is good, but we can always work better at that. But I know I quickly went through that report. Is there any questions on my end?
Any questions of Chief?
Yeah. You talked about some of those earlier crimes. If you could scroll up a little bit. You talk about some of those crimes that you saw increase from April to May. What was the common denominator that you would see?
So the common denominator in there, and especially if you look at person crimes, well, I think it's both. I think it's the warmer weather. I think it's people getting out about. We saw DUIs rise up. We saw batteries at certain areas in town that, people that are intoxicated get in a fight. So I think it's the common denominator in our person crimes going up there is that kind of the getting out and about more with friends, family, drinking, those type of things. I do know this, and I should mention, and thank you, Councilman Wheelock. So one thing that we're doing, that the mayor and I looking at the map, our CAD map on our system in our cars. when we look at that, because of the annexations that has happened in the city of Star, our CAD map is a little behind. So if you look at these reports and you see, if you're looking through them, you're seeing that the numbers are changing, it's because that's been addressed, that's an issue. And what that means is when a call comes out and they give an address, depending on where that address lands in that map, they call either a Star police officer or a North County police officer to go handle that call. Or if you're in Meridian, right? So when you're looking at that, if that CAD map's not up to date, then that means that we're not having a Star police officer go to that address because it's still in North County. So we're actually getting a little more, numbers aren't changing huge, but numbers are changing a little bit because our CAD map's being updated. It's been addressed. And the problem, what we're hoping is every month they'll, over at Dispatch, we have a GIS professional over there that he looks at that and he's going to keep it up to date of all the annexations that we do in the city of Star. So that is another factor in why the numbers raised a little bit, because we are showing, oh no, that's actually a city of Star crime that occurred there. It's it happened in the city of Star. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, any further questions of Chief?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
Thank you, Chief. I really appreciate this report. When I had a similar question, but regarding the school checks on, so I noticed that in May of this year, it was twice as high as what it was last year. And so I'm wondering if there's any, do you have any reasoning for that? Is there,
I know that I'm big on if my guys are free of stopping by the schools and being there. Matter of fact, when that Texas school shooting happened, when that occurred, I again reflected upon what I can do here, what Star deputies can do here, and they actually started using some of our laptops and writing reports from Star Elementary. So they would check out there, and some of those are that. However, we've put a big emphasis on making sure we're in the schools all the time. Star Elementary doesn't have a full-time school resource officer. And so the school really loves us coming by and having us, check on them, walk through the school, say hi to the kids. And so that's why you'll see actually Star Elementary gets visited more than any other elementary school north of the freeway. So we get out and about in Star Elementary quite a bit because the principal loves us there, the teachers like us there. And I got a couple of guys that really enjoy talking with the kids and being with the kids. So, yeah.
okay,
that'd be
so
why.
it's not necessarily that there's actual, an issue, at the school. It's just police officers stopping in just for presence.
Yep,
Yep,
that's
okay.
the only reason.
We got a couple officers that are very proactive with the kids that I think are going to pay long-term
That's great.
dividends, because I will tell you, we had some kids that did a little bit of vandalism, didn't realize it was vandalism. But when we said that it could be a felony, they freaked out because they had a presentation that they remembered from one of our officers there. So that tells me it's resonating in their heads, right? And so now they understand that you can't do that.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So it's a good thing that we're more active in our schools out here. So cool. Any other questions of Chief? None? All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, you bet.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have Ada County Emergency Management team coming up here to chat with us. Oh, you by yourself?
Well, I've got Randy with me. I'm not by myself. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Crash Marusich. I work for Ada County Emergency Management.
Mr. Crash, will you pull that microphone towards you?
I can hit the back of the house, but yes, I'd be happy
Yes.
to do that.
Yeah, sorry.
Ada County Emergency Management and Community Resilience, which is the longest agency name, I think, in the community currently. Randy works with us in our office doing planning and project management for a lot of our planning processes. If you've not heard of our office, I want to give you a quick review of the kinds of things our offices manage here in the community. So we are a county agency, but we do emergency management services for all 6 cities, the county, and the highway district through an intergovernmental agreement. That includes community-wide planning processes on major events. We do have community-wide plans in which we've called in first responders from all the various jurisdictions. They've all come to agreement on things like our hazardous materials plan, our wildfire plan, and our flood plans. Those are community-wide plans. They're available to you on our website. If you ever want to see what we've got going on, that is adaprepare.id.gov. Tons of information on emergency management on that page alone. So those community-wide plans exist, and we are currently in the process of developing some more community-wide plans. We're working with our county coroner and also with the Ada County paramedics in conjunction with all the other first response agencies, fire and police, to develop mass casualty and mass fatality plans. There'll be two separate freestanding plans headed by those two agencies. But again, it's been a community-wide effort with all the different agencies coming together, all the partner agencies to develop those plans. That process should be done by about early fall. And those will, again, be available on a limited review. I'd imagine those will be protected plans when we get done with those. Our office has also developed some annexes to emergency operations plans recently, including a debris management plan. And on the horizon, it is our hope to develop a community-wide, again, like the hazmat and wildfire plans, a community-wide disaster recovery plan, which is something our county has not had ever. So that is on the process. One of the things we want on the hopper we want to get done this year. The city of Star is currently actively participating in two separate planning processes. The first one is an update of the 2014 emergency operations plan for the city of Star. That was done by a contracting firm that came through and kind of did emergency operations plans, not only for the county, but for all 6 cities and the highway district. After spending 6 years with the plans, or a little bit longer, we've seen that they weren't really operational. So we're back in the update of those planning processes to try to make it a little bit better. For those of you that may not be familiar with what an emergency operations plan is, I just want to really briefly cover it. It is not a tactical plan, so it's not going to go down to the weeds and talk about very specific actions anyone's going to take. It's just going to assign roles and responsibilities for the various city departments, things they've agreed that they will do in the case of a major event. It wouldn't require a disaster event to invoke your emergency operations plan. You could use your emergency operations plan for the 4th of July. That's a major planned event that involves multiple agencies and multiple departments. So that kind of a planning process would be very useful, again, in that kind of a plan. Now, that plan won't be ready for you this 4th, sorry, but we're working on it. That one's in the process. We just opened up with a workshop that took place about a month ago, I guess. And we'll have on the 29th, Brandy will get together with Jake and other members of your city staff to go back over an after action report that was written from that workshop, gather some more information. We'll put together a draft plan. We'll present that again to all of you or into the city staff to review, and we'll hold what's called a seminar to wrap it up. So we want to make sure we've documented all the information the city staff has told us accurately, that it accurately reflects those things that the city believes they're going to do in a case of a major event. And all that coordination, there's a lot of coordination pieces involved in that. All that information is in there correctly, along with your orders of succession for each of the individual departments. So that process is underway. Additionally, as a community as a whole, not just your city, but also your sewer and water district and also your fire district have been actively participating in what's called the multi-hazard mitigation plan. This has to be done every 5 years in accordance with federal regulation. It's what makes all the partnering communities and all the partnering, well, there's 20 separate partners, not all of them even jurisdictions, many special purpose districts. It makes all of those partners eligible for both pre and post disaster mitigation money from the federal government, from FEMA. And again, mitigation are those actions we take to reduce the risk or eliminate the risk of a particular disaster event. So as an example, they say for every dollar you invest in mitigation activities, you receive at least $6, and some people say as much as $12 in benefit and recovery. So if we elevated that bridge before the floodwaters came and the bridge didn't take any damage, as an example, that would be the dollar savings that they're talking about in that case. That process has been going on for about a year. There was a whole new hazard analysis that took place with that. Each of the jurisdictions was given that hazard analysis. They were allowed to rank those hazards of concern by themselves. Again, not directed by anyone else. Each jurisdiction looked at those hazards, looked at the analysis, ranked them, developed mitigation actions. So every jurisdiction will have their own annex. That process hopefully will be ready to come before council and mayor about the same time as your EOP. So hopefully you'll be able to promulgate them together, the two plans, and make them official. That is an absolute crazy wild nutshell of things we have going on. First, there's a lot of other things going on. There's an alert warning and evacuation annex being written that would also fit into your EOP. That's a process currently underway. Also with the first responding agencies, we're coordinating with them. But that's, I want to be very respectful of your time because I saw your agenda looks kind of full. So any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Crash? And yes, he goes by Crash. Nothing? Nothing. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Outstanding. I appreciate it.
That was easy. And we'll see you here in a couple months, probably. All right. Move on to item 5, the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor Chadwick.
You what? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we are going to remove items 5C and 5D off of the consent agenda. So if we make that motion to approve, please make it with the removal of those 2 items.
All right, Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman,
I'll move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item 5A, approval of minutes for March 1st, 2022. Item 5B, approval of minutes for March 15th of 2022. Item 5E, final plat milestone phase 3, and item 5F, final plat milestone phase 4.
okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Hershey. Aye. Wheelock.
Aye.
Salmonson.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. The consent agenda has been approved. On to item 6, the action item for the 2022 beer, wine, and liquor licenses. We need a motion to approve these.
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman,
I'll move to approve the beer, wine, and alcohol licenses as presented with the conditions as noted by, in the report there by the city clerk.
okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Hershey. Aye. Wheelock.
Aye.
Salmonson.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. On to item 7A. This is a continuation of a public hearing for the Stardew Place subdivision that was tabled from June 7, 2022. And so we will have the applicant come up and speak. Because this is a continuation, any public testimony is going to be what has been presented with tonight, not something from the past. I got to open the public hearing at 7:20. I lost my train of thought. At 7:22 and ask the council if they have any ex parte contact or communication relating to this project.
No.
None.
Okay, hearing none, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Antonio Conti with Akron Estavold. Thank you again for allowing me to come back on this project. And this time I came prepared. I actually have a PowerPoint presentation. The project is located at the corner of Center and 3rd Street. It consists of the existing parcels, 4 residential parcels with a zoning of R4, and one of them is still within the county and is zone RUT. We're proposing a R7 residential. The comp plan designation you have as a comp-plan residential, we're going to leave it the same as comp-plan residential. We are land use or single family residential. The change from the previous plan is we reduced the density of the project. We removed 3 lots. If you don't mind, go to the next page. One more. There we go. So what we did, I think the next one would be better. It's already easy to see. So what we did, we reduced the number of lots. We removed the.
You have the clicker up there, sorry.
Oh,
I didn't know if it was there or here, so I was just moving them for you. But we're good.
okay.
Yeah.
No, that works. Thank you. So what we did, we removed that small common lots that we had on the north side for our conversation. And we created about a half an acre worth of common space on the south side. It's going to have a walking path tying to the project to the south. Plus, we're going to have probably some amenities like a gazebo and trees and benches for people to sit down. Then the path, there is a sidewalk that goes all around the cul-de-sac. It's going to tie into the sidewalk at the corner of Center and 3rd. What we did, like I mentioned, we removed 3 total residential lots for a total of 23 lots at this point versus the 26 we originally had proposed. We tried to match the property lines with the neighbors in the back, mostly the one to the north and to the west, just to minimize the impact on those neighbors. In the next few pages, that's my clicker. Okay, those are the same picture we had the last time that we brought over. Some of the picture of what we are planning to build on those lots. The other item we did, we kind of extended the right-of-way further back to mandate that the houses would be sitting farther away from the right-of-way. That was one of the items that came in during our last meeting. You don't want those houses sitting right in front. So the right-of-way is actually 70 feet wide versus the standard 50. We had about 10 feet on either side of it. And then we create a nice 10-foot buffer between the sidewalk, it's my pointer, between the sidewalk and the road itself, which would allow us for a more green feel than what we originally proposed. This is just, like I said, some pictures of the houses that the client is planning to build. just give some ideas of what the different floor plans could be. And it could be a combination of different, some of those houses. Any questions?
Any questions of the applicant? Go ahead, Councilman Wheelock.
So are you getting rid of the pathway that used to be on the north side? That connected, used to connect in the park area? We talked about moving it so that it connected with that sidewalk at its latest spot. Is that
Correct. The plan is to remove, it used to be right across from this, right up here.
right?
We took it out and just extended out. Since we're building a sidewalk on Center Street, it's gonna tie to the sidewalk on Third, right at the intersection between Center and Third. And we left the one on the south because it's tying to the subdivision to the south where there's gonna be a path coming that way.
How wide is your road? Is it 36 feet?
Yes, 36 feet from Becker curb to Becker curb.
Those are my questions.
Any further questions of the applicant?
Mayor Chadwick?
Yes, ma'am.
So I believe last time we discussed matching up the lot lines with the property to the front. And I noticed lot 8 and 9.
Missed one.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep. And so would that be combined into one lot?
if that's needed, we will.
Are you willing to? Okay, thank you.
And just so we're, because I think before all of those lots, there was like 3 lots to 1,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And so for the most part, if you look at that one, they've pretty much made it singular to 1 except for the 1 right there. Yeah.
Correct. And if we need to lose an additional lot, I know the client won't be happy, but I'd rather have the project move forward than be denied over 1 lot.
That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions of the applicant? I do appreciate you coming back, Antonio, with this and with that bigger green open space for that, I think is better too. To allude to what I think when we're talking about that pathway on the north, I would rather have it all in that one space anyway to make it a bigger amenity for them. So I think that looks
Agreed.
good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the public testimony. And we will start with Michael Keys.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, my name is Michael Keys. I live at 338 South Long Bay Way here in Star. And I want to say this, this plan is a great improvement over the previous one. And that was really my biggest concern. The only other thing I would raise is I believe there's a new sidewalk plan the Transportation Committee's been working on that potentially would define detached sidewalks along Center Street. And I wonder if it would make sense to include those in this project at this point. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions of Michael? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, one more, Miss Lynn Davis. And state your name and address, please, and just pull that microphone down towards you. Thank you.
Lynn Davis, 665 North Quincannon Way, Star, Idaho, in Saddlebrook. And it is a better plan. It might be made a little better, more. I'd like to talk about some generalities. I'm Lynn Davis and I live in adjoining Saddlebrook around the corner from this proposed development. My son and his family live on Center Street across from the proposed development, as do 6 other families who intend to live in their residences with no future commercial enterprise and intentions. Center Street marks the border of residential housing in Old Town Star. Farming took place west of Center Street. I do not know when or what the reasoning was to put the east residential side into a commercial zone because that whole area is filled with older homes. So I hope council will vote to limit the number of homes across that street. And it would be nice to go down to the 4 homes per acre for several reasons. The area's current traffic is unsafe. And I think tonight's police report of increased crashes in Star validates this point. If the developer lived in town and experienced the difficulties of safely trying to get out on State Street, he would realize he would not be pursuing high-density development. Until Star can get its soaring traffic problems to a safer place, City Council needs to be careful about adding to the current problem. For most of my 55 years of career, I worked in land use. The last 30 years, I was Public Affairs Director of Virginia Tech's College of Natural Resources, and I worked with federal, international, state, and local government agencies and organizations. We had many partnerships with these groups. I traveled the globe with my work. So I'd like to speak to the benefits of low-density planning. The number one guiding principle in land use is that there are some places you do not build on. The tiny county of Israel does not permit any building on land that can be used for agriculture. They learned to irrigate the Jordan Valley from the Jordan River. And today that country is exporting a lot of volume of vegetables and fruits, unlike the poor desert neighbor of Jordan on the east side of the river. At some point before all the farms are lost in the Treasure Valley, I hope that leaders in the Treasure Valley will realize they need to help farms along the irrigation system to stay in agriculture. It is special land. When it's lost forever. Decades of solid research show that farmers more than pay their fair share of taxes
You got about 15 seconds, Ms. Lynn.
and are bargains to the local government. Stormwater runoff is another reason City Council should consider reducing the density of developments. We have a high water table and it poses more problems. Our open space is nature's way of absorbing the impact of storms, and so are trees, which moderate stormwater runoff. I hope that they will plant the big trees that they have in the picture.
Your time is up, Ms.
So I
Davis.
believe that you do smart growth in management.
So, Ms. Davis, do you have your statement written out?
I do.
You can give it to our clerk right here, and the whole thing can be included in the presentation, okay? All right. That's all that signed up. Mr. Arbiter signed up and didn't wish to speak. So with that, the applicant can come back up and rebut the testimony.
Good evening. Thank you again. Two items that were brought up. One is detached sidewalk on Center Street. We followed what ACHD asked, but I know ACHD will defer to the city. So if you want a detached sidewalk, there is no opposition with a detached sidewalk at the end. We have no problem with this. In regards to the concern about the loss of ag land, this project is an infill project. It's surrounded, there is no ag land involved into this project. It's surrounded by residential on all sides and commercials on other sides. So it's a perfect, in our opinion, it's a perfect addition to the city where if it was a little bit farther out, it would make sense to try to preserve more of ag land. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions of the applicant? Any questions of staff? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much again for the opportunity to come back. Appreciate it.
It's 7:33. We'll close the public hearing and move on to council deliberation.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hershey.
I think with the addition of the detached sidewalks along, just forgot the name of the road, Center Street.
Yep.
I think that's a good addition, and the lot 8 and 9 being shifted to better match. You can either completely lose it or shift it to match the lot lines of the existing neighborhood. With that, I like the changes they've offered, like the detached sidewalks on the inside. The newer park is nicer and the reduction of density. And it is an infield, it is a small one. And some of the concerns brought up about the reduced density, we've blasted that in our last comp plan and really knocked a lot of that out. But this is a small infield one, so it's a little bit different. I like the changes proposed as long as we merge 8 and 9, or excuse me, 8 and 9 and the detached sidewalks, I'd be all for this.
And I would encourage you to include the elevations as such in the development agreement.
So noted.
The elevations they provided in the presentation.
Oh, yes, that's fine.
Whoops. Okay, any further comments?
Mayor Chadwick.
Councilwoman?
So I do have a question, maybe I can still ask a question, right, for
Sure.
staff?
Yeah.
So the open space, are they, in their application, I mean, it doesn't say anything about a second amenity in addition to the pathway. So they can treat that pathway as their one amenity Are they only required to one amenity? Okay. But they were willing in their statement to add a second amenity. So I agree with Councilman Hershey also, and I think we've discussed this prior. So if there's, I'll go ahead and make a motion if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna move to approve. Sorry. Yep, Stardew Place, annexation and zoning of R7, and the development agreement and preliminary plat, consisting of, what's the total number, new number?
Sean is at 24. I'm sorry, 23. 23. 23 lots.
All right, consisting of 23 lots. With the addition of, with some conditions of a detached sidewalk on Center Street. Another condition of second amenity in the open space. The elevations as noted in the presentation. And then just, I think by that new lot number, that takes care of that 8 and 9 combination of the lot 8 and 9, correct?
No, 23 is what's currently showed up there, residential lots. It doesn't include combining those two.
Okay, so combining lots 8 and 9 into one lot.
So you're wanting 22 residential lots and 3 common lots. Or, yeah, right? Right? Yeah.
Okay, so 22.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more?
Nope, that is all.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Now's your time to discuss if you want, Councilman Wheelock.
No, I'm good. I'm happy with the lot lines that have been adjusted, and after looking at it, I'd rather have an infill project with small lots than 40 acres of small lots. So if we're gonna have lots of this size, this is probably the right application. So that's my take.
And Sean, the proportionate share is already included, right, in the development agreement? Okay. All right, so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The fireman got my granddaughter out of the shopping cart.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Roll call.
David Hershey,
Aye, yes.
Kevin Wheelock.
Aye.
Jennifer Solomon.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, on to item 7B, the public hearing for 10206 West State. Is Jeff here? Did I see Jeff? Are they outside? Did he? All right, so whoever's speaking can come up to the podium there and state your name and address for the record, and you have 20 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm all screwed up tonight, I'm sorry. So it's 7:39, we're gonna open the public hearing. Got to ask the council if they have any ex parte contact or communication regarding this project.
No.
None.
No, hearing none. Sir, the floor is yours. State your name and address for the record.
Evan McLaughlin, address 10206 West State Street in Star, Idaho.
Okay.
And I'm here to talk about the project at 10206 West State Street. At a previous city council hearing, the city proposed a parking ratio for our commercial space parking on our site at 1 parking space per about 292 square feet. And at that time, we had depicted on our site plan about 34,600 square feet of commercial space. So it was 118 total spaces with 20 from cross parking agreements from the neighboring parcels and a contingency on our 4th commercial building, one of those north sites there, that development of the fourth building would be contingent upon having those cross parking agreements with the neighboring parcels. So what I'm here tonight to request is that we have, number one, size down our commercial density to the requirement in our development agreement, which is 33,300 square feet in order to meet the DA requirements. And so we want to keep the city's proposed parking ratio at 1 per 292 square feet. So this would be a total of 114 parking spaces. And we would have 94 on our site, which we now have. In changing the sizing of those two northern buildings, it's not shown on this site plan, but I think we sent one over this morning. We were able to gain an additional 17 parking spaces on our site. So our site now has 94 spaces. And so we would want to also maintain the 20 spaces from future cross parking agreements. But we are asking that we remove, or the city approve removal of the contingency of the development of that fourth building from the parking agreements with our neighbors. Number one, we have no timeline when or if those neighboring parcels will develop. We've approached some of the neighbors to try and purchase that and create an even more spectacular development, and we were unsuccessful. So we don't know when or if those would even develop. And this project really is a catalyst for the CBD zone. We don't want to have effectively a piece of dirt sitting there when we've got great commercial tenants, we've got some new residents living there, and it's really great development for the city of Star. And our site lost 21 parking spaces. So at one point we had 21 spaces along the future First Street. And if we were able to maintain those, which ACHD took away, we would have had the full requirement of 114 spaces on our site. ACHD took those out in determining that First Street would be a public road, which will allow for the future connection to North Seneca Springs to the east and then Taurus to the west. So we had parking and then they took it away, but I think that's a benefit to the city of Star making that a public road and really create some excitement as that area starts to develop.
Okay, questions of the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Councilman Hershey?
So how many spots are you short now? I'm trying, I missed one of the meetings. I was, I don't remember where I was.
You're at a fire
I was on a
event.
fire and so how many spots are we short? Are you looking?
So we meet the city's requirement from one of the previous,
Okay,
the ratio that was proposed at a previous council meeting. We had a larger commercial square footage. And so we've sized it down to meet the development agreement requirements of 33.3. And so using that, it was 118 spaces. So it's about 1 per 292 square feet. So by sizing our commercial down, the requirement would be 114. And so we have 94 on site, 20 with cross parking, continuing the 20 there. So before it would have been 98.
this is your third time, right? So I remember the first one you said, so I'm trying to remember, that the parking had some mitigation because there was daytime and more evening time where never the two shall meet.
That's correct. So we've been in varying levels of discussions with new tenants, and our intent with the commercial uses is to create an area that's active, at all times of day, morning to the evening. So we anticipate having food users, probably some retail that will be more morning traffic, and some small professional offices likely on the upper floor. So there will be times in the morning where it's busy, evenings when it's busy, but the users and the amount of time and time of day in which everybody's going to the site is not going to be exactly the same.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
So basically, we're just saying we're removing the condition that you had to get that cross agreement because you meet it all now so they can build that fourth building. Okay?
Is there any condition that needs to stay with the neighboring property or no? Because I thought you said that 20 spots you're still in agreement with 20 spots currently.
Correct. We're open to future cross parking agreements. Just we would prefer and are requesting to not have it as a contingency to build the fourth building.
Right. Any further comments? Okay. Do you have a sign-in sheet there? Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
The other right here.
The other right here. Okay. Okay, well, there's no one here to speak. Any further questions of the applicant before we close? Did you want to say anything further?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hearing no public testimony, nothing further. It's 7:45. We'll close the public hearing and go to council deliberations. Somebody?
All right. Hold on.
Councilwoman?
Um,
She's
sure.
got something going. I heard
I'll
her.
go ahead. It sounds like because of the commercial space was reduced in size, that we have there's really no reason, now they meet the parking requirements that we require. So, there's no reason to keep this keep this item in the development agreement.
Right.
So I'm okay with taking it out.
I'm just going to make a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hershey?
I move that we approve the 1026 West State Street Development Agreement Modification DA-20-16.
As noted.
As noted, as presented, as
Sean, do you got something to say?
Yes, what are we taking out?
So that's that highlighted
That
condition.
On the square footage?
The condition that fourth building has to have the 20 spaces before
Cross.
Yeah.
Cross.
for the cross thing before they build it.
Yeah.
Do we want to modify the square footage requirement?
No, because they adjusted their square footage down to what was already in the DA.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it does match.
What they were trying to do is get us more square footage, but we didn't accommodate that with parking. So they modified their square footage. They just don't want their fourth building, for this is what I'm gathering, to be delayed
Yeah.
with that agreement in place to have to get that cross parking agreement, because they don't need that now.
a motion stands.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Salmonson,
Aye.
Wheelock.
Aye.
Hershey.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, give me just a second here, guys. I gotta plug this. Oh, no, you guys can go. Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, Jeff's got to stay. The blue one, give that to Jacob right there for the last packet.
Yep.
So are we going to here, Sean? Which one? What do you want me to pull up?
Just my staff report's fine. It's not on there. It's on the.
Oh,
Yeah.
thought you asked me to pull that up earlier. Okay. So pull up the staff report. This one? Okay, so we are on to the UDC amendments. We're going to have staff, Sean, provide. So if you guys want to sign up to speak to this, please make certain you sign up on this sheet. I know we got quite a few folks here for that. Ryan has it up here in the front. If you haven't signed up already. So we'll have Sean talk to this first and then have the council ask him questions, and then we'll open up the public hearing on that part. So it's 7:49, and we're going to open up the UDC public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Staff has before you a recommendation for Unified Development Code modification to include chapters 1 through 8 within the current code. The highlights include chapter 1 administration. I'm not going to go into all the details. If you have any questions, we can
Okay.
cover it. But chapter 1 includes administration, application criteria, surety agreements, definitions, including added definition for build to rent developments. Chapter 3 is zoning district standards. Included in that are
is a request by the council to reduce the side yard setbacks within the R3 to R12 zones. Those are just highlights. I'm not going through every individual. These are probably the ones that are going to be discussed in detail tonight. In addition, in chapter 3, additional residential district standards, including the transitional lot regulations found on page 72. Additional commercial, CBD, light industrial, and mixed use zoning district standards. The addition of the riverfront center district standards. The addition of the architectural overlay district. It's found on page 76. Chapter 4 includes the additional regulations applicable to all districts, including performance standards. Off-street parking and loading requirements. That includes the addition of the in lieu of parking allowances. Private street requirements, common open space and site amenity requirements. Chapter 5 includes specific use standards, including requirements related to the build to rent developments. Chapter 6 is the subdivision regulations, includes the subdivision purpose and process. Some of those items in that section include a TIS traffic study prior to acceptance of applications. We've also included a minor land division process. And we've updated the short plat process. Also included some additional drainage, grading, and irrigation plan requirements. There's also subdivision design and improvement standards. Chapter 7 updated the plan unit development section. And Chapter 8 is the design and development standards, including landscape and buffer area standards. And as I provided in the packet, I provided the council with a redlined updated version of the proposed zoning ordinance changes. We've recently received 3 letters from the development community, from Toll Brothers, from the BCA, and from Hunter Homes.
We also got a 4th one from Randy Clarno.
Oh, I'm sorry, and the 4th one from Randy Clarno, which I did not. I need to get copies of that to you guys.
Did you? There should be one over there. Yeah.
Right. So the 4 letters is what we have in the record. I have reviewed the letters and the comments from the different developers in the BCA, and have provided some changes that I'll go over after we go through the public testimony.
Okay.
I stand for questions.
All right, and I just want to clarify a few things. I do know there's been some question asked, what kind of involvement we've had. I know we started this process last year and actually had it on hearing nights on December 7th, December 21st, February 15th, and June 7th to discuss all these changes and stuff here in this body. And then again tonight hopefully for the approval on this. And I do know that some in the development community have spoken with Sean and reached out on several different portions of this.
Correct.
Prior, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So do you guys have questions of staff right now? Before we move on? I need that public hearing sheet. Oh, do I have that? Huh? Okay. Can I have it? Did you sign up, Becky? Okay. Can I have it? Okay. And I will say, I know there's questions relating to what we were talking about when I talked to the BCA about permit limits. We're not limiting any permits or anything like that tonight. That's not what this is about. It's simply about the code. So we're not setting any numbers or anything like that. So Okay, so we're gonna start with, we're all over the board here. All right, we're gonna start with Michael Keys on the yeses. We're gonna give everybody 4 minutes to speak instead of our typical 3. So state your name and address, please, for the record. Huh? Oh, well, he'll get 4. We'll give him 2 to a page.
Mr. Mayor and honorable councilors.
Oh,
my
and
name-
just real quick, I'm sorry. I'm gonna want one more thing. If you do have it in writing, guys, if you could please give that to our clerk, that'd be awesome, for the record. So go ahead there, Mr. Michael.
Honorable Mayor and honorable councilors, my name is Michael Keys. I live at 338 South Long Bay Way here in Star. I'm speaking tonight as a person who has to live here in Star with you. You're my neighbors. I'm your neighbor. And in general, I think a lot of these changes that we're seeing tonight are going to be really positive for the city. I do have a couple of things I'd like to suggest as changes. Under section 8-1B-1 annexation and zoning rezone, I'd like to add a B.8. It says for rezones, approval from an active homeowners association shall be required if located within a neighborhood with current CC&Rs. That would have really helped the city out when they had a public hearing on the property directly north of Councilman Wheelock's home here a year or 2 ago. 8-3F-1 RC Riverfront Center District. There's a typo in there. The words are encouraged is repeated. In general, though, I'm really pleased that the city is taking that. I think that's going to be a pivotal change for our city going forward. On 8-4A-17 sidewalks and parkways, I'd like to change section I where it says or larger is required by a transportation agency to sidewalks shall be built larger if required by a transportation agency, as it just makes it more clear. 8-4C-9 standard for food trucks, trailers and stands, temporary food operations. I'd like to add a section J. Food trucks for occasional HOA related events or block parties are exempt from this section. On 8-5-25 secondary dwelling unit, I'd like to add a section L. Approved from an active homeowners association shall be required if located within a neighborhood with current CC&Rs. On 8-6A-3 preliminary plat process, under D 5A, it mentions Ada County Surveyor's Office. And I'm wondering, since we are now a 2-county city, if we should specify that as Ada County only, or should we just say more generically, from the county surveyor's office or just the county? And I also think that I didn't really make this note in here, but it occurs to me that it may be time for us to revisit the height ordinance in the commercial and CBD zones. There's some other changes that frankly, I was beyond delighted to see in here and that I enthusiastically support. I'm really happy to finally see the council adopt language and a definition table for the special transition overlay district. I think that's long overdue. In the architectural overlay district, I was really happy to see the city expand the boundaries of that district to include either side of State Highway 44 from city limit to city limit, including future annexations. I think that should have been done initially, but I'm glad that you're finally catching up. I'm really happy that you've decided that Star is really Star, and you've created a lemonade stand exemption for our young entrepreneurs in the city from oversight from the heavy hand of the Star City government. I'm most excited to see the city of Star take a leadership position, at least in Ada County, probably the Treasure Valley, and perhaps the entire state of Idaho, by creating oversight for build-to-rent neighborhoods. I know that the city's goodwill was abused at one time by a project, and I'm so happy to see the city take a leadership role to create some oversight there.
30 seconds.
So, and beyond that, I have a concern about private property rights and the covenant the city made with the development community, but regarding the number of permits and the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in investment decisions that were made based on that. But I see that we are well represented by the development committee, so I will let them address that at this point. So thank you very much.
Okay, any questions of Councilman Keys or Councilman Keys? Michael Keys? Got so used to saying that, yes. You got the microphone?
Missed it when you said that you felt that it was time that something should be looked at again in the CBD and commercial zones. Was it, you said light ordinance? What was it that
Height.
you?
The height ordinance.
Height, thank you.
Yeah. I didn't put that in there. It just occurred to me based on something I saw written in the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. All right, moving on to Greg Kaminsky.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, Greg Tominski, 7097 Southern Vista Court and Star. I am here on behalf of the Fire District. There was a few comments that were addressed by the Building Contractors Association that I wanted to address up front. And one of them was, didn't really want to compare us to another city, but why the setbacks would change from one city to another. And they specifically mentioned Meridian. And Meridian is a very large, in my opinion, fire department compared to Star. And we don't have the staffing or the equipment to handle the really narrow setbacks. When we see what has been done in the city in the past with the 5-foot setbacks and some even smaller in other areas, we don't have a truck that will get us to a roof. If we had to get on a roof to do roof work, we rely on a ladder, and putting a ladder up between two buildings that are very close together, we struggle to be able to climb the ladder without hitting our equipment on the eave on the other side. So with lots of discussion with staff, we came to the conclusion that a 7.5-foot setback was better than a 5-foot setback, and in some cases less than that. That I just wanted to address why it's different. We do use the same fire code throughout the state, and this is not a fire code thing, it's a capability thing. And ultimately, with our relationship with the city and having these discussions, ultimately we asked for a lot wider setback than that. We originally started at 10 to 15 feet, and we came to the conclusion that 7.5 feet would work for the city and for the fire district. Is there any other questions about?
Any questions for Chief?
The other comments that might have been made by the Contractor Association?
No, do you have any, Ms.
No,
Jennifer?
no, I don't. You
Okay.
answered them. Thank you.
Anything? All right, cool. Thank you, Chief. Okay, let's see. Move on to Mr. Adam Capel. The only one at Toll that has hair. Oh, I'm sorry.
I like it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mayor Chadwick, council members, Adam Capel, Toll Brothers, 3103 West Sherrill Drive, Meridian, Idaho. Many of you know Toll Brothers has and is continuing to develop high quality and successful developments in the city, which we've enjoyed. And we consider ourselves partners with the city. We worked very well with city staff, yourself, Mayor, and want to continue that going forward. I am here tonight to express some concerns with the proposed UDC changes, and I'll keep it brief. Won't get into each item, but generally it all boils down to a request for more time for us in the community to review, understand, and work through various changes and concerns that have come with those proposed changes. So we received a copy of this Thursday afternoon last week, and we're asked to provide a response by end of day yesterday, and then come testify if we felt inclined. That really didn't provide enough time to thoroughly review, coordinate with city staff, or consider how these changes will impact current and future developments, which we've made substantial investments in. Typically for changes of this magnitude, we'd see open houses, stakeholder work sessions, things to that effect. You mentioned previous hearings, but in our past experience, we've been parts of groups that have spent a few, months meeting periodically with residents, development community members, business members, and so on, and would very much like that opportunity. For those reasons, we'd respectfully request that the city defer the decision on this until such time that these meetings can occur and community input can be considered.
Can I'm going to ask you a question real
Certainly,
quick to that.
certainly.
So are you willing to allow us to continue to not accept new annexations and zoning rezone requests until such time? Because we have not accepted anything since February because we're trying to get this code and stuff updated for that. And so that's the trade-off on what you're requesting. We've been working on it for 6 months, right? And did this in some of the hearings. And I get you only got it on Thursday. I get it.
No, I'd prefer not to slow down potential applications anyway, but would like the opportunity to digest this a little bit more, meet with some stakeholders and work through some of the specifics rather than up here making on the fly recommendations for changes, being able to sit through, talk item by item with staff and other stakeholders in the community. But really of the changes, proposed changes, the primary concern is with language throughout that a final zoning decision, preliminary plat approval and final plat approval does not guarantee future building permits for approved lots. We agree that the impact on city services is a critical consideration for the city, but ask that you consider that zoning, whether initial or rezoning, is the appropriate time for the city to review a development's impacts on services. Despite the language being legally problematic, as shown, it creates a significant amount of uncertainty around development and financial investments that significantly benefit the community in which those investments are being made. Because of that, we'd respectfully request that this language be removed until a thoughtful legal strategy can be implemented to address the city's concerns with impacts on services without jeopardizing entitled developments or vested rights. We have a number of other concerns, as I'd mentioned. We'd really like the opportunity to table this or defer it and work with staff and other members of the development community, residents, businesses, and so forth. We do totally understand the challenges the city's facing and want to be part of the solution, not the problem, but that does take a little bit of time to work through some well thought out approaches. Definitely appreciate the mayor's proactive approach with reaching out to the contractors, but again, that was last week and we'd really like a little bit of time. We are hearing you and want to come up with solutions. So I really appreciate your time.
So hang on, because I just want to address that a little bit with Sean. I think this is a time, Sean, that didn't we make changes to what he's referring to? Because I think you're referring to the statements in many places.
Yeah, we have a statement in the annexation section, in the preliminary plat section, and in the final plat section that in the language that basically says that building permits are not guaranteed.
And that's what you're referring to, right?
That's what we're referring to, correct.
And so are we saying, did we make a change? Are we suggesting we make a change?
We're discussing it right now. It's in your proposal.
Right.
I think
For just as annexations and rezones, and don't put it in the other location.
Well, staff would recommend if you're gonna do that, yes, take it out of the preliminary and final plat until we work out some language and continue to work with the BCA and the developers, but leave it in the annexation and zoning section, because if I'm hearing you correctly, that's where it should be discussed prior to the council approving an annexation and given that entitlement. Is that correct?
Correct. But again, with a number of these changes that I'm hearing that may be coming tonight, it would be phenomenal if we had the opportunity to understand what those changes are, review them, work with staff, work with other stakeholders, meet and come back.
So what's your proposed timeline on coming back?
As quick as possible, because we know how important it is to you.
Okay. All right, we'll talk about more about that. I may call you back up.
You're welcome to. And again, we're here. We answer our phones anytime you guys call. We've worked well together. We very much appreciate that and are happy to continue to do so.
Okay.
So appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good.
Don't have to bring that up.
No, no, he's with Toll. That's Adam with Toll. Okay. Mr. Todd Tucker. The other guy, it must be the building industry, man.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Todd Tucker. I work with Boise Hunter Homes. Our business address is 923 South Bridgeway Place in Eagle, Idaho. We're a local land developer and home builder, and we're really excited about our construction project in the city of Star River Park Estates, which is down by the river. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about the proposed update to the development code. We've read through it and really like most of the updates that were made. We just have a couple of minor concerns. One of those was addressed in a letter that you all received. I just wanted to reiterate some of the concerns. It was really along the same lines as what you just heard from Adam from Toll Brothers. And it all stems around, our main concern is around A-6A-4.D, which is the statement that building permits are not guaranteed after a final plat has been approved. We're not as concerned about the language in the preliminary plat or the zoning, because zoning, an annexation and a rezone and a preliminary plat never guaranteed you a building permit. But in our mind, a final plat does. It's almost like a contract between us and the city. You give us conditions of approval. If we comply with those conditions of approval and we get a plat recorded, then we have a legal property with the right to get a building permit on. And where the concern comes from us is it's really, as you all know, it's fairly expensive to develop property in the Treasure Valley. To do a phase of a subdivision, a developer could be out as much as $10 million putting all of the improvements in. The only way for us to recoup that money and to be able to pay the banks back and to pay our debt is to be able to monetize that. And the way we do that is by selling it to or building a home on it. And the only way to legally build a home in the city of Star is to get a building permit. And so it really hampers our ability to continue to move our business forward if we don't have the ability to build homes, which is really the lifeblood of our industry. So that's our main concern that was addressed in a letter. One that came up later, actually this afternoon, from one of our project managers, actually stems around section A-1C-1.C.B, which is the section on streetlights. We really like the way that the code is written right now on streetlights. It allows a developer to bond for those streetlights, and it allows for construction to move forward and to get a building permit and to build the home. But prior to a certificate of occupancy, then the streetlights need to be energized. The way that the change was made, it says that a building permit will not even be issued until the streetlights have been energized. In the development world, streetlights are the very last thing that goes in, because Idaho Power, who runs power to them, will not energize them until all the streets have been paved, the sidewalks are in, everything has been completed. And so in our world, it really, the way that the code is written right now works perfectly for development. We don't see that there really needs to be a change to that because we're dealing with a governmental agency, Idaho Power, that will perform. It's not some other entity. Power will be generated to those streetlights, and it delays the project. And time is really the essence when it comes to doing development and to building homes. It's really time. So those are the main two concerns that.
Can I just ask you a question on that though? So when we look at this, it's more from a public safety standpoint. When we have construction going on in areas and it's dark, it's hard for our police when they drive through to really inspect these areas when you have no light. Zero light in these subdivisions. And this last winter, for instance, I was back, I drive around 5 o'clock in the morning to see what's happening. And I had some contractors that actually started these massive bonfires in the back of these houses, right? And if my fire department needs to try to respond to these things too, they have challenges locating. I mean, it's hard to find an address on written wood to begin with, right?
Yeah.
How do we address those concerns and those issues? I mean, that's the reason why we're looking at this.
Yeah,
right?
no,
I
I completely understand, and we understand the safety standpoint from it. And again, it's not something that's going to cripple us. It's really just something that, in our mind, from the development world, the way that it's written now, seems to work seems to work good for us because, like I said, time is of the essence when you're developing property. But we do understand the safety concerns about needing to, for emergency responders to be able to see. Again, this isn't a code section that we're going to fall on our swords over. It's just something that we really think the way that it's written now is adequate.
And I want to hear others when you guys come up and talk about this a little bit, because in my opinion, we're trying to find ways to protect even you.
Yeah.
Right? Your builders are out there, and some of you build your own stuff, right? You're out there building, and with the theft on the price of lumber and all that, it's important for us to be able to see this stuff. Our people see this stuff when they're out there on these sites.
Right.
And it's hard. It's literally hard when I've gone through some of these myself. It's just difficult. And I just, I don't know, I mean, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I want to look at you from a safety standpoint and us as a safety standpoint.
No, yeah, I totally understand and we get it. And I think maybe this is another one of those, like the previous testifier, maybe a little bit more time. I get, we don't want to delay anything because we want to get these applications that are sitting in the queue accepted and get development moving again in the city of Star. So a lengthy delay we would definitely not be in support of, but maybe this is one of those situations where we could come in and meet with city staff and kind of talk through some of these concerns, hopefully in a timely manner. Again, like the folks from Toll Brothers, we're local, we're right down the street, we're in Eagle. We answer our phones, we'll be down here in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, if you guys call us.
Oh wait, you're adding more houses for traffic.
That's on the other side
You
though.
set
It's
yourself
on the
up
other
for
side.
that one.
It's on the other side.
Oh, it's in Canyon County.
It's on the other side.
That's Canyon County.
So those are really our only two concerns. The only last thing I would add with the little bit of time I have left, the code section that you guys added on minor land divisions must be some of the most brilliant code language I've ever seen written. Mainly because I wrote it about 10 years ago when I worked for the city of Boise.
You've heard of R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate.
Yeah. When I was reading through it, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I wrote that. So it is. So good job. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Todd? Okay, sorry. Thank you, sir. Okay, Miss Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Becky McKay with Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario and Meridian. As Adam indicated, I received my copy on Thursday. So I started going through it and kind of digesting it. And I agree that we'd like to have at least one workshop just to kind of make sure that our input is heard and that some of this language is digested. A lot of times there's unintended consequences when codes are changed. And then the cities look back and go, well, geez, that's not working, or maybe we shouldn't have done that. One of the things that I'm most concerned about was the provision where it stated that you could obtain a final plat approval, construction plan approval, but building permits may be withheld due to lack of services. I agree with Mr. Capel. When a project's initially annexed and preliminary plat approval is granted, at that time, you're looking at the transportation system, sewer, water capacity, and the ability for the city to provide services to the development. When you get that far down the road and you have millions of dollars going in the ground, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call that no more building permits will be issued, that is very, very concerning. In our business, we need clarity and we need certainty, and that's what the ordinances are intended to provide for us, so we know what the rules of the game are. One of the other things I wanted to note is on the detached sidewalks for local streets, you have 5-foot detached sidewalks with a minimum 6-foot parkway planter strip. Ada County Highway District will not allow a 6-foot unless you do plant or root barriers. So you may need to add that if you do a 6-foot, you have to do a root barrier, so it'll buckle the sidewalks. If you do an 8-foot planter strip, then you're fine. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
So if we choose to go with the 6 foot, you're saying we should put in our code that we have to have the root barrier. in there.
Otherwise, it will
Okay.
buckle the walks
So
as
would
the
you rather-
trees mature.
From a development standpoint, community standpoint, would you rather have 6 foot or 8 foot in that scenario?
Mr. Mayor, we typically go 8 because the root barriers are expensive. And 8, then we just don't have that additional expense.
Okay.
Would-
So I guess you could write it in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, would you rather give up the ground into the lot?
Well,
Keep that 8 foot?
the 8,
Generally,
it
that's where
depends
the
on,
lot ends up losing ground.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Wheelock, it depends on how you size the right of ways. Typically, the sidewalks either need to be all in the right of way or all outside the right of way. So sometimes the sidewalks are on public sidewalk easements, sometimes they're within the right of way. That's left up to the developer. The minimum width for right of way at Ada County Highway District for a 36-foot street is 47. So we alter that right of way width to make sure that our sidewalks, if we're doing detached walks, are outside that right of way or all in. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The other thing I was surprised to see was the swimming pool mandate. We have a lot of projects where we do multiple pools within the project. And the 80 by 40 is extremely large and extremely expensive. We did take a look at like the public pool in downtown Meridian at Story Park. That is 75 by 45. And obviously
So we're
that,
right on track then.
that's for a community.
Oh,
That
gotcha.
is under the West Ada Recreation Department. So I guess I would like to have some language in there that the size of the pool should be comparable to the size of the development. The other thing, a lot of times we have splash pads, we have pickleball courts, we have tennis courts, we have a variety of amenities. And if we have to sink all of our amenity dollars into just the pool, I'm afraid that it may take away from playgrounds or other amenities. So I guess I'd like a little bit of discretion there on the part of the council and the part of the staff to make a determination. I understand that there is a project out there that had a 20 by 30 pool, which is a residential sized pool, and was not adequate. And so obviously we don't want to see that happen. But there's a big difference between a 600 square foot pool and a 3,200 square foot pool. So I guess I'd like to take a look at that and get some input. I notice it's in the multifamily chapter. If you have 75 units or more, you have to have an 80 by 40 pool also. I think lastly, Sean's done a great job, obviously trying to clarify things. I do want the mayor and the council to know that I did make a copy of the rental section and gave that to Mr. Kenneth Welburn of AMH and indicated to him that he should read that and that you guys' concerns are in that section of the code.
In all the discussions that we've had with them.
Yes.
I mean, that's the reason for that.
And I basically made it very clear.
Yes.
You guys created the need for this, and it would be nice if you would read through it and take a hint. So
Sure, thank you.
trying to do my part. I'd love, if you guys could give us a week or 2 weeks to get together, do a little workshop with your staff or with the staff council, it doesn't matter. I can make myself available just like the rest of them, pretty short notice, and just kind of talk through some of these issues. And other than that, I think Sean's done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yeah, I just real quick, but just so everybody's aware, we when you're talking about all the money that everybody spends, and I completely get it. But where we get hamstrung is when the state comes and hamstrings us,
Yes, sir.
right? So I understand that we have final plats and stuff like that that are out there. And we have all these, we got like 4,900 building permits, 4,900 lots that can still be built with a state government that hates cities, that's limiting our new construction growth to help us fund our police and our fire. And that's where we're running into the challenges. And that's where I came to the BCA and we had the conversations, and they're more than willing to try to figure out solutions for this, right? So this is not an attack on any, this is just trying to live within our means with what we have. And the thing with Star is we're 25 years old, so we don't have the levy amount to be able to get our 8% like other cities that are not impacted by this, like the cities of Meridian and Boise, even Garden City. I mean, Garden City, we have more people than Garden City, but they have 3 times as much amount levied in property taxes than we have. And so it doesn't really impact. And this is the reason why we are looking at that living within our means right now. And I get it. It impacts everybody. And we need to just find a solution. And this is my way, unfortunately, to get everybody's attention. Because I've been screaming for help for 2 freaking years on this stuff, man. And I got people coming to the table to help me. And I've been up there testifying on things with bullets coming after me, right? By myself. And so I'm glad you guys are coming to the table and helping out. I just want to tell you, I appreciate that. And I'm sorry it came to this to get there, but sometimes you just got to stand up and just put a flag in the ground, like I've always said, right? And try to get things fixed so we all can coexist and make things work, right?
And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate everything that you're doing to bring that to the forefront for discussion purposes. And I think the development community is always open to solve the problems.
Yeah.
I was at Nampa City Council last night, and I was the first project to agree to a mitigation fee for the Valley View School District, which is reaching critical mass as far
Yep.
as their capacity. And they're going to try to run a bond this fall, but they're not sure if that's going to pass. So I think, everybody, there's creative solutions, and we understand the strain that we're putting on the cities.
Yep.
And the city of Star, I mean, it's like exploding.
It is.
It really is. And I can see the pressure on your faces. And when we come through with these projects, Ryan's obviously trying to figure out how to provide sewer and water. And I think we have to look at the big picture, fire protection, sewer, water, police protection, transportation, all those things.
Right.
There's only so much to go around.
In this time frame. Yep. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any questions on Miss Becky? Microphone.
I need your contact information for American Homes for Rent.
Yes, sir.
I need that.
I would be glad to provide that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Randy? I did see you in there. I did.
My name is Randy Clarno, 1861 South Wells, Meridian. And myself and my investment partners have been developing residential communities in the Treasure Valley for about 20 years. And recently in January, as you may know, we were approved for 3 projects on Star Road between Joplin and Shinden, a total of 175 acres. 3 what we consider to be high quality residential projects. I think I'm going to be a broken record here because what I've heard from the previous 3 folks is pretty much, I agree with pretty much everything they have said. I think generally we've had a short amount of time, as they've mentioned, to go through this, my team and myself. I think the issues that Becky raised are very valid. I mean, we're building pools in communities, for example, but nothing 80 by 40. We have a 280 unit community that we're doing 140 by 60, and it's sufficient. The HOA management companies that manage these for us give us great direction on how big they ought to be and what we ought to be doing. That's just one example. I would be in favor of a little more time, not a lot of time. I'd also be in favor of participating in that. I think my team wants to participate in that. We just didn't get enough time to go through all that. I will say, however, though, I'm a former director of development services for a city of 45,000. I was that for 8 years. And so I understand the challenges that cities go through firsthand. But I can tell you, your code, the amendments that you've made generally to this code are great. They're well written, they're simple, they're easy to understand, unlike some other cities in the valley. So congratulations on that. But I do think there's some.
Congratulate that one over there because
Yeah, he's good.
his
He's very
office has
good.
been shut for 2 weeks. So
But we need to do some fine tuning. I think there's some things that we need to look at there. I think the big objection that I have or concern that I have is, and you've heard it already, about limiting building permits, allocating them, rationing them. And I understand, Mr. Mayor, the concerns that the city has with 389. I think it's lousy legislation. It was the wrong way to approach the concern and the need. I am more than happy to participate in, a forum or a group to take a look at how you can overcome the challenge there. I think there are a lot of ways that you can address fixing that without going to the extreme of putting a section in your code that says, hey, you get far down the road, we could still not issue building permits. Well, you've heard about the investment cap. I mean, we already have $22 million invested in those 3 projects up there today. And if you go up there, you see us going crazy with construction. We have another 20 million to spend up there. And so we don't want to get to the point of final plat and then all of a sudden somebody tells us we can't have enough permits. It's complicated. We agreed with the Star Sewer and Water District, for example, when we annexed to build a brand new multi-million-dollar water campus, to extend large interceptor trunk line sewers up to the bench to provide capacity for that whole area in exchange for us getting credits against connection fees. Well, we don't get those credits unless building permits are issued. So we could find ourselves investing all of this, not having sufficient building permits to pay that back in time to satisfy our agreement with the Star Sewer and Water District. That's a big deal for us, of course. We have to go out and get financing, as they've mentioned, that to develop land, the money that you get is not a 15 or a 30-year mortgage money. It's 2-year, maybe 2.5 year. So we got a gun to our head. We're on the clock to get this work done. And if we can't pay that back through building permits, we get in big trouble. Or we don't get the opportunity to get access to the capital because they're going to recognize that the city of Star has this provision in their code that they could pull that trigger on us at any time. So there are real concerns. And I would just encourage you to just take that language out of this code altogether and let's sit down and talk about other solutions to help get you the funding that you need to provide the public service, public safety people that you need to do that. I think the development community is here to support you in any way that we can to make sure that that happens, because we have too much at stake, you have too much at stake, and we need to come together to work on that.
yeah, we have a lifetime of citizenship here at stake, right? I'm gonna rehash this a little bit. Just on my fire side, right? They can build the station all they want because we got fire impact fees. They just can't get personnel for it. There's just no way. It's gonna take them 10 years almost to get one station manned, right? This is the challenge we have with 389. If 389 wasn't there, they could have that thing manned in 2.5 years, 3 years. That's the challenges we're facing as a city. And so I'm glad you guys want to come to the table again, right? Were you at that BCA meeting?
I was not. I wasn't aware of it.
Oh, are you part of the BCA?
Yes,
Oh,
actually
okay.
I am, but for
Yeah,
some
so they
reason
got
I
a
didn't
working group
notice.
together to work on that. So I get your concern on that as well. Thank you for telling us. You guys got questions of Mr. Randy?
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
This is maybe for, it's not necessarily directed at you, Randy, but kind of for the group. On the timing of this, the building permits and when it's guaranteed. I think there's a fair question about when the building permits should trigger. Or the guarantee that you have building permits trigger, right? I think generally everybody agrees that if the city's gonna approve a final plat, as Boise Hunter suggested, and you've got now you have lots that at least at that point, you should know that you have building permits. I personally don't think that just because property is annexed and rezoned, that guarantees you any amount of building permits, because at that point you don't have a project. But somewhere in the middle there is kind of where we're talking. I recognize that from what you're saying and others, that once you start construction, you've got your loans, you're putting all the money into the ground, that you need to be able to at some point sell those lots to pay for that construction. And so maybe final plat is too far. I worry a little bit just personally. I don't know where the council is on this with preliminary plat, because especially when you have really large projects, for the city to say, well, we've approved we've been talking about someone who's got potentially thousands of lots that they might be bringing to the city at preliminary plat stage. And do we say, well, all of those building permits now guaranteed because you've got a really big preliminary plat? I don't know if that's right, but what if about approval of construction plans? Is that a fair trigger? And again, I'm not speaking for the city. I'm just trying to find out if there's another spot where, once the city approves construction plans for a particular phase, then, if you continue through your construction, that you would be able to, have building permits. And I don't even know if that'll work based on the number of lots we're talking about, but that's just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, and can I add to that a little bit? Just because of what you were saying about the water facilities that you have to put in, are you putting those in up front, or is that at a certain phase? I mean, what kind of
It's pretty early.
it's pretty early, because that would take into account all the financial expenditures and stuff.
Yeah.
That go in too, right?
It's a difficult question from your vantage point, I guess. And I think maybe preliminary plat is the place where those need to, I think final plat for me personally is too far. I think preliminary plat is where, because as soon as I get zoning and preliminary plat approval, I'm not a speculator. I'm not trying to sell that paper to somebody. I'm going right to construction as fast as I can go. And the challenge with construction approval at the city of Star is that it's not just the city of Star. It's Star Sewer and Water District, it's ACHD. They're the ones approving these civil plans, not just the city. So that could be problematic, I think. But from my vantage point, preliminary plat, I know not all approved preliminary plat lots get built. And to your point, some projects are really large and they're phased. But maybe there's some way in an approval for a preliminary plat, you can, control how fast they go. But the other thing is that builders need momentum. I mean, they need to have some certainty. I'm not a builder like Toll Brothers. I sell to, 8 or 10 local builders, and they need to have some certainty that they've got these lots in front of them and they can get permits. And they got, in case somebody wants to build on a lot, they got a client that wants to build a home, but they can't because the permit's not available yet. They have to wait a year. But, and so then you get a stigma potentially surrounding the project. Well, why isn't it being built on? Is there a problem with it? I don't know that I want to live there. You get all these kinds of questions. So restricting building permits is problematic. I mean, I would love to see if there's a better solution than that. Maybe there isn't, but I'd really like to try to explore that first to satisfy the needs I know the city has.
Councilman Wheelock has a question, I think, for you.
It's interesting to me to sit here and listen to everybody that's coming, that's just heard this changes talking about in the last since Thursday, when we've had all the workshops coming up to it. And I recognize that you've invested millions of dollars, and I would be panicked as well if I were out millions of dollars and could only get a little portion of that. What's the solution? Is there one that you are aware of that we're not seeing? I mean, you've all looked at this problem. You can see that the state's hogtied us to not be able to have a safe police protection, which to me is more important than the millions of dollars. But it's not my millions of dollars, and I get that. What's property rights worth? And I have property, so I still think that's an important aspect of this whole conversation.
Yeah.
And if you have suggestions, help us. That's what it's amazing that we had to get to this point to open up the conversation. I don't understand why it took so long to get to here, but we're ready to work through the problem, whatever that takes.
Yeah, we're here. So let's start working on it. I mean, like I said, I'll make whatever time available. I think these folks will too, to sit down and see if we can find some solutions. I know other communities and other states and other locations have dealt with this same issue. I come from Oregon, property tax limitation. You know, it took a while to get it figured out over there, but I think they figured it out in a lot of places. So, you know, Arizona dealt with a similar issue. They came up with some solutions. Some requires cooperation with the state, but I think cities do have the ability to create their own solutions too.
Microphone.
What about in the development agreement if the mitigation, there was a mitigation clause that turned around and guaranteed that the developer couldn't come back and ask for that back? So I'm talking like how many dollars does it take per student to run through until they actually hit the tax rolls?
Well, I think that's what we're looking at is those options through, I mean, that's.
So I mean, I'm just looking at, is there a solution within the development agreement itself that says, okay, yeah, you're going to do this, but you're also going to turn around and pay these mitigation fees.
Right.
And hold the city harmless or any district that you've paid those fees to.
I think that's part of the solution that we're talking about with them. This is last February when I brought this up to the BCA at that time. And I'm gonna just tell you guys, you know, going to full-time mayor makes me get into some deep dive of stuff. I'm gonna tell you right now, my staff knows, because I'm like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, because I can actually dive into this. But we talked about this. What does it look like even adding it on? And we approached this, adding it on to an HOA fee for 5 years. It was like $300 a house for the for every HOA for 5 or 6 years, whatever that takes, until such time that your property taxes hit that. Right? Those are some of those fee things that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Right? But I know what you're saying. I mean, that's part of that process. And tonight we're not going to solve that. You know, we need to keep pushing on this. You know, if we're going to table that section, or are we going to table the whole thing? I don't know, and where we're going to go with this at the end there.
But he's right. The development agreement is the tool that we're going to have to figure all this out and put those details, whatever those might be, in there. And that's probably where we need to start making these decisions on, can the city provide the services? I think that's kind of what Randy is stating. You know, where do you, how far do you go? Obviously you're paying a lot of money right after your preliminary plat's approved because you're doing your site improvements. So I think we get that. The mayor's looking for ideas. We all are.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you, Randy.
Thanks.
Are you done?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Mr. Mark Bottles.
Mayor Chadwick.
Oh, sorry, Councilwoman.
Can we turn up the heat? I am freezing. I'm so cold.
She has no teeth. She's been chattering.
Chilly. That's good. I've been 4 minutes. I'll be quick. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Bottles here, 839 South Bridgeway Place, Eagle. I don't want to repeat what everything that's been said tonight, things that I agree with necessarily, but I want to appreciate, first of all, the city reaching out to us in a form of really the details and the impact of this, you know, HB 389, because I really did not fully understand it. Didn't understand what was going on even in the States, because I heard different cities screaming different things from Meridian to everybody else. And then people pulled back and said, oh, it's going to be okay. Not really understanding that. Well, then Meridian probably ran their analysis and said, we're probably fine. I don't know what each city did, but every city had a different take. And I think until literally this past week did I understand the impact, what it means for Star. And I understand there's been explosive growth here, and people have made huge investments, as you know, into this community for development purposes and that. And, you know, we ourselves are committed to reaching out. It seems like the development community is very active now because of that, raising the flag, so to speak, and getting behind it. It's going to take a little bit of time to get that, because it's not an easy solvable issue, but I think we can get there. The one thing that I do want to stress, though, implementing that proposed building permit language right now, I believe is going to create just basically a lot of uncertainty. And particularly in your commercial market, you're going to just freeze this market, because no one's going to make big investments. Companies to build here, even major retailers, because if they don't have certainty, they're not going to put the capital out, even as where developers, maybe residential might take some of that risk a little bit to a certain degree. I don't believe the commercial market will do that. And so I guess two things, we still need to solve that issue. And I would recommend a couple things that I do want to see this UDC agreement amendments get done right away. And I don't mean delay it long. I think it would be good suggestions tonight to have a work session here real quickly. We haven't had the time ourselves to go through all the amendments and documents that have been updated. We'd like to review that real quickly, can be done in days. I think sit down, review that, and honestly, try to get to at least adopting and moving forward with the UDC amendments here within weeks, or I would say in less than 30 days if possible. And that's just my recommendation. I do think though, we probably should take a little longer on the building permit issue and really dive deep into that before we create an issue that goes out to the public that honestly could deter businesses and other things from investing in the community. And I think, again, we need to address it. And I'm not saying postpone it out there, but let's get the UDC agreement changed and adopted because they've worked so hard, Sean and his team, and getting that there. And I say we get that done quickly, like within weeks. But again, have that work session. But as far as the building permits, I think, I'm not saying we have that resolved in that time frame. I think we need a little bit more time with the development community, come up with some solutions and address that before we have some ripple effects that we don't want to see happen, I think, because that tax basis in the community is important with commercial. And we need that, especially with all the growth for the residents that live in this town. So anyway.
So let me ask this, I'm going to ask the question. So if we were to table this whole thing till July 5th, that's our next meeting date. Could we get a workshop in place next week to sit down and talk about this stuff? I'm even with you guys. I mean, everybody out here, thumbs up. Okay.
Mayor, I think we're referring to the sections of the code, not necessarily the building permit.
Right. The sections of the code.
It's going to take a while to do it, but yeah, I think we can, if the community is willing to get together soon, we can try to have this back in front of you guys by July 5th.
I just thinking about this stuff and looking at this, I think it's important for us to get a workshop in here or the River House or whatever and sit down and just talk about all these little things and dial it in. And then the permit thing, I know we're working with the BCA and others on trying to figure that language out too. That can get pulled out possibly and looked at later. Or looked at, get the code done, and we could add that later if we need to on there, right?
My thought would be, don't be afraid to solve the problem if you can solve it by June 5th or July 5th, right? If you can figure out that.
Well, if they can, yeah.
Don't rule that out because it's a big problem. If it's fixable, let's take care of it. You know what I mean? If somebody can.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just had a thought and I don't want to lose it.
Smart people working on this problem.
There are people working on it. Yeah.
Well, I know we probably have more speakers coming, but it seems to have a reoccurring theme I've noticed. I was going to say July 5th might be just a little too soon. I'm not going to even be here. I know you don't need me for the workshop, but I would like to be a little more in this, but I'll be in New York. So the time zone difference will be murder for these meetings because Star is good at two things, and getting out of meetings early is not one of them. And everything boils down to relationships. It's all relationships, everything in life. And I think, and I could be wrong, that we have good relationships with our builders. And I think our builders have good relationships with communities, and our community has good relationships with us. For the most part, I want to see this get resolved. When I heard 389 pass, my brain said, no, building caps are coming. I actually thought that. And I didn't know what it meant because I was like, that's the only thing I can think of. That's the only thing I can think of right now. But if we have the expertise in the room, which I believe we do, and I've heard all of you speak before, And so I know you're good. I'd be happy to have a solution, but come to us with a solution. I need a solution because I have no solution. And my job is to protect this city. And that's the entirety of why we're doing what we're doing. It was only 2 weeks ago in a meeting when we brought this up, and every one of us, you could play it back, was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So we thought it was a good idea. I had a feeling you guys wouldn't like it as much. But the goal is not to hurt anybody. Obviously, it was said we have 389, which is bad legislation. We have to react to that because that is now a law, and a law must be followed. And so we're trying our best to figure out a way to do that. I believe that this shots fired thing here that the mayor is good at doing. He can't put pins back in grenades. I trust me. But the idea is we need your help, and that message looks like it's been received. I trust something's going to come of this good. I do. I trust we'll find a way. But I think you need more than 2 weeks. I do. Okay. You guys think you can nail it in 2 weeks? Go with it.
Okay. You got more, Mr. Mark?
No, that's it. If you have, no, it's great.
Any more comments for Mark or questions? Okay, thank you. Miss Emily.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Emily Mueller with Mark Bottles Real Estate, 839 South Bridgeway Place. I have just one small comment that could probably be tacked into the workshop, but I'll just share it now. One comment to the UDC amendments, and that is with the zoning district dimensional standards, section 8.3A4. The table in there, and then it's actually just the footnote number 2 to that table. That footnote 2 states that rear, front, and front yard setbacks and zero lot line waivers can be requested by means of a development agreement. And then it says that the interior side yard setbacks can only be requested, a waiver to those can only be requested through a PUD. And we would request that all setback variances, the interior side yards, variances could be requested through a development agreement. I think that a development agreement still allows the city to control, to approve that, reject it whenever they see fit. But it also gives the city some flexibility where if they see a side yard setback is appropriate for development that hasn't come as a PUD, gives them some flexibility, use flexibility to approve that variance. So we request that those all just be considered the same.
Okay. Any questions? Is that it, Ms. Emily?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Emily or comments? Okay,
Mr.
thank
Mayor?
you. Yes?
I suggest, since Ms. Emily did bring up the setback issue, that we discuss that a little more detail tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah, let the development community understand where the council is coming from on setbacks, because there's a reason why staff has recommended what they have as far as the waivers. And so I think the community should understand where you're coming from on the setbacks, and maybe possibly where the fire department is coming from on the setbacks. So it's understood.
Okay, so we can talk about that after? Okay, she doesn't need to stand up there the whole time while we're talking. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, believe it or not, that's all that signed up on there. I'm gonna make a recommendation that we do table this. We'll talk about the setback thing. I think that's important so the public and everybody understands where you guys are at on this.
I can.
And I think July 5th, we need to get this going. We need to understand that we're not going to accept any applications until such time that this code gets updated.
That's fine.
But if July 5th is our next meeting night, and if we set up a workshop next week, it doesn't have to be at night, it could be during the day. I don't think these guys have to be there, right? No, we can just do our workshop, right, Chris?
I recommend it's between staff. We'll definitely have the city engineer, the fire district present. So we have everybody in the.
Chris has some comments.
I'm just gonna answer your question.
Oh,
Yeah, it's anybody you want to invite. So whether you want or don't want the council, obviously if the council's there, it's a full public meeting. I mean, everyone's gonna be invited and it's only limited to the group of people here in the
Right.
room, right? But if the council's there, you've got a quorum. And you know, that can raise, I mean, some issues. I mean, it has to be published as an open meeting and all that. I don't know if you want the workshop to be something where there would be any kind of deliberation or
no, I
decision
think,
making by the council. That's why it's maybe a little better to keep it at a staff level.
so will the quorum be 2 plus me? Or does it
No.
gotta be 3?
Has to be 3 council members. to be
Because I
quorum.
think 2 are gonna be gone. Are you gone next week?
Yeah, part of it. And if you have it in the daytime, I mean, there's several of us that would just have an almost impossibility of making that.
Yeah. So,
I would.
so if we had 1 or
Was it several?
2, we were okay with that, right?
As far as a quorum, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the concerns with having kind of this informal, you know, kind of town hall or workshop is that you don't want it to look like the council members that are there are actually making a decision for the council before you come back to a public hearing. You know, so you want to make sure it's just a discussion and that it's not somebody speaking and saying, oh yeah, that's great, we can do that. And then it goes to the public hearing and the other council members that weren't participating don't like it. That can create some issues. So that's why sometimes it's better to be staff, but if it's only 1 council member, I don't necessarily have a big problem with it. Just need to be careful that we're not.
Okay. So then one other question I have a staff then is we would have to have this all wrapped up with all the comments and stuff done by Thursday at the latest, right?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend that we table it to the 19th. I'm not even in town on the 5th.
Oh, that's
For the
right.
public
Dang it.
hearing. So I still think we can meet next week. Maybe if we could look at the 28th in the afternoon to meet and get that workshop. That way, if we need a second one, we have time to do that. But let's at least get the first one going.
What day did you say? I'm sorry.
Next Tuesday, the 28th.
So we could look at our calendars and stuff. Are you looking at mine?
Yeah, you're.
Oh, that's good?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Now available.
And at least let's get the discussion going with the development community at that workshop and then see what we can accomplish and then shoot for the 19th for that.
So July 19th is where this would end up being, then where we could do the next workshop or bringing it forth before the council then. Right?
Yeah.
Because I
and then that
think-
gives us the ability, if we have to have a second workshop, we could do it the week of the 11th.
And
if
I guess
necessary.
I gotta confirm, because I know Councilman Hershey's gone on the 5th anyway, and I gotta confirm if Councilman Nielsen's gone, because he's going to Italy.
Yeah.
Right now. So that might be a challenge anyway on the 5th. Okay, all right.
Okay.
So that's my suggestion then, that we table it then and do the workshop on the 28th, but this is your guys' call.
Oh, Mayor Chadwick, is the public hearing still open? Do we need to close it before we make?
Oh, I'm
any
sorry.
decisions?
Yes, I do need to close it.
Okay.
I do need to close it.
Yeah, I mean, you're fine. I mean, you can make
Yeah.
motions or whatever. It's not-
Okay, so it's 8:57, so I'm gonna close this public hearing.
Yeah, I don't know that you want to, you're going to keep it open because you're going to take more discussion.
Okay, we're gonna, all right.
Okay.
Release
So confusing.
developers to
Yeah.
Sean, so that way he can kind of incorporate, come up with some sort of.
Okay, so what?
Mac.
You need to speak in your microphone, Mac.
Okay.
Hey, aren't you
Out
the
of
one
all
that told
people,
us to do
Mac.
that?
I did, sorry. So if the development committee would turn around and go through their drafts and get them over here to Sean, then he can come up with some sort of consensus in the next couple of days
And we talk about it on the 28th.
and talk about it on the 28th.
Okay. So we're gonna
That
leave
way
the
you're
public,
still
all
accepting written comment.
right, so we're gonna keep the public hearing open. We're not closing it. We're gonna keep it open and just, I need a motion to table it
Mayor Chadwick,
yes.
I will make a motion to table this public hearing to July 19th.
With the direction of doing a workshop with staff and council.
Yes.
Right.
Yep,
Okay,
as you have noted.
okay, got a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Are we not gonna talk setback at all, or just that's? gonna
Well,
be-
we can talk about setbacks just in general after. we're
Okay,
done.
then I will
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
withhold
part
till
of it.
then. No,
Yep.
no comment.
Okay. Yeah, he made the second, so roll call.
Hershey,
Aye.
Wheelock,
Aye.
Tomlinson.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries. This is going to be tabled till July 19th. Staff will reach out to everybody out here for next week to set up a meeting so we can sit down and discuss all these challenges. And then we'll go from there, right? Okay, so item D is not on the table at this time.
Go right off.
So let's talk about setbacks real quick, the reasons why.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna, first off, once again, thank you all. I'm glad you're here. And here's my point on setbacks. I'm gonna be a little more hardline on this. I am the liaison for the fire department, and I have had a lot of discussion with them. Very, very good people. What they recommend for setbacks is what I am going to champion, plain and simple. Okay, thanks.
You guys have any, so part of the reason, I guess, do you have anything to say about setbacks? God, why do we turn up the heat? Now I'm sweating, man.
It's fine.
Do you have anything?
No,
No?
I'm happy.
I guess my thing on setbacks is we've lived a life of stack and pack, I think, is what we discussed a lot about, and a lot about the public safety. What's interesting for me, that really kind of turned this on was the Stonecrest with the 3-foot side setbacks, and what does that look like over there, right? However, and some of it is our equipment, right? The utility equipment, the air conditioners and things like that, and being able to get somebody into the backyard to help people if something were to happen. But I discovered something when we did a tour over there, that not all equipment is square. There's some of the vertical style equipment that you could put in there too on that we could all discuss as well. I don't know if that'll make a difference there, but will you be there, Chief, next week when we have the meeting? Okay. Because I think it's important that he's there, and maybe Zach's there too, to discuss some of these safety issues as well, right? But it's a stack and pack. We've lived a life of a lot of density coming in the Star. You know, we've had a 30-something% growth rate since 2020 census. It's an incredible number. It's the highest. It's double anybody else in this valley. You know, and honestly, and I was talking to staff about this a little bit earlier today, when we are, who would have thought in 2020 we would have a COVID factor that made people move in mass out of areas that they don't like to move into our area, which created the need for all the housing and everything else. If everything just kind of went as planned, I don't think we would be having this discussion today at all, in my opinion, right? You know, I don't think we would, but it's created a need for us as a community to try to make sure our vision's going the correct way. Yes. Yeah, well, yes. And honestly, you know, like Star, we kept everything open. People love it here, right? We're not mandate driven, right? And in a way, this is almost a mandate. And I hate to say that, but it's just trying to find a way to make our community what it's going to look like in 20 years, what's going to look like in 30 years, be sustainable for the long term. So I'm glad that we could all sit down next week. I'm excited about that. So I appreciate you guys coming to that. I'm just rambling now. You got anything else? No? Don't laugh over there. No, I'm kidding. All right, so that's it on our agenda tonight. It is 9:03 and we're gonna adjourn. David, you're done.
What happened?